So, on this episode, we're going to talk about how to leverage the power of our faith and the power of plants to revive our cardiovascular system. And so, if you've been listening to me and following my lives on Instagram, you know that I've been talking about heart health lately and the magnitude of the problem, not just in the United States, but specifically here locally in Alabama. Okay. And so, this is a perfect month to talk about reviving our cardiovascular system because February is American Heart Association Heart Health Month. Okay, so February is designated on focusing to improve awareness and to improve the condition of individuals' heart health. All right, so over the next few weeks, we're going to talk about 7 ways that we can revive our cardiovascular system by leveraging the power of our faith and the power of plants. But before we get into that, I want to share some statistics and data surrounding the reality of the magnitude of the problem, okay, that we're seeing within our community as it relates to heart health. All right. And so if we just look at Alabama to start, Alabama ranks third to last in the United States in deaths due to heart disease, averaging approximately 15,000 deaths per year. That's a lot, okay? And so the different types of heart disease that we're seeing in the state of Alabama consist of coronary artery disease, which is the most common. And if you don't know what that is, it's the narrowing of your arteries that's caused by a buildup of plaque or cholesterol, okay? Coronary artery disease decreases the blood flow to your heart, so it can lead to heart attacks, it can lead to heart failure, arrhythmias, and strokes. So all of those things are categorized under heart disease, okay? Cardiovascular disease. So some of the risk factors for CAD or coronary artery disease is smoking, increased blood pressure, high cholesterol, physical inactivity, obesity, high saturated fat diet, and then diabetes. Okay, so we're going to look at those risk factors more in detail, but I'm just trying to give you an overview of some important topics and things that we really need to look at and wholeheartedly talk about because our community is really suffering from this disease that's causing so many deaths. Like I said, not just within our local community, but within the United States and actually globally. Okay, so Alabama's risk factors for cardiovascular disease, the number 2 risk factors is increased blood pressure and increased cholesterol, which are both modifiable risk factors. So when we talk about risk factors being modifiable, it means that there is something that we can absolutely do about it to prevent cardiovascular disease from happening. Okay, so Alabama is in the stroke belt, which consists of all of the southeast states all of the states in the southeast region. So the stroke belt, those states have an age-adjusted stroke mortality rate that exceeds the national rate by 34%, which is like tremendously high. So let's say, and the reason why I'm bringing up strokes because stroke is cardiovascular disease is a risk factor for developing a stroke, or high blood pressure or high cholesterol is a risk factor that could lead a person to having a stroke, right? So when you talk about Alabama being in the stroke belt in the southeast region of the United States, having their mortality rate exceeding the national rate by 34%. That means that if the national mortality rate for strokes is 50%, then those states in the southeast region, it's 84%. So the rate exceeds the national. And I'm just giving an example by 34%. That's really, really high. Okay. So then if we look at the national statistics and averages, let's just take one of the risk factors Okay, wait, let's go back. Let's go back. So in 2023, approximately 680,909 people in the U.S. died from cardiovascular disease, which we know again is the leading cause of death in this country. And it's also one of the leading causes of death in the state, right? So globally, cardiovascular disease accounted for approximately 19 million global deaths. That's a lot of deaths. That's a lot of people dying from cardiovascular disease. Okay. So then if you separate it into one of the subsets, up to 80% of people who have strokes related to CVD, it can be prevented like we talked about, okay? So that's when we start talking about those modifiable risk factors, like if you have hypertension, then what do you need to do to decrease your blood pressure, decrease your cholesterol? Another modifiable risk factor is smoking, and let's just be honest, there's so many people who smoke, but they say that they want to improve their blood pressure or they want to come off of their blood pressure medication or they want to improve their cholesterol, but yet they still smoke. It's like it doesn't make sense. Like it's contradictory, okay? So you're saying you want to be healthy, but yet you're still damaging your body or consuming the thing that's causing the problem. So you have to get rid of the problem and then develop a sustainable self-care practices that's going to improve your health, okay? So let's see. The statistics for the entire United States when it comes to people having high blood pressure and whether or not their blood pressure is under control was 16.1%. Okay. So 16.1% of adults age 18 or greater had blood hypertension that was controlled, and they age adjusted it. So if you break it down, adults 18 to 44 who had high blood pressure under control, it was only 6.5%. That's a really low number. Adults greater than or equal to 65 who had hypertension, but it was controlled, that statistic was 29.8%. And then adults 45 to 64 who had controlled hypertension was 25.3%. So, the numbers don't lie. And the reason that I'm bringing this information to the forefront is because, God has shown me this, and it's a big deal to him. And I feel like it's in his heart, and he wants people to be healed of these heart issues, heart conditions that we are facing in our community. And in the Bible, it says men's hearts will fail them. So not only spiritually, but physically, we're seeing that the hearts of men are failing them because of heart disease, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and strokes. Okay. And there's other ones, heart failure, congestive heart failure too. Right? And so God he wants something done about it. Okay. So the purpose of me going over this information is to, yes, create awareness. But if you're listening to this and you fall in one of these categories, then you need to do something about it. If you have high blood pressure and it's not controlled, you need to decide today that you're going to do something about it, because God did not call us to be a statistic. Neither did he call us to manage our diseases. Okay. He said in Peter chapter 2, verse 24, it says, by Jesus' stripes, we were healed. So we're supposed to be walking in healing, not walking with all of these conditions that's, causing us to have issues with our heart. And essentially, we're losing so many lives, like premature deaths. People are dying prematurely because of heart disease. Okay. All right. So what else? So you have the magnitude of the problem, but let's talk about the costs, right? So between 2018 and 2019, the direct and indirect cost to care for people with cardiovascular disease was $407 billion. That's a lot of money. $407 billion. And it was actually $407.3 billion. Okay. So all of this money is being spent, but people are still walking around with heart disease. So this figure, I'm sure includes pharmaceuticals, invasive procedures, non-invasive procedures, so that's surgeries, that's stents, that's, echoes, that's x-rays, that's heart surgery, and all of the heart medications on the market that's being prescribed to help people manage these diseases that they're saying are not curable, but we know that some of them are, right? And so when we look at that dollar amount, just imagine what that money could really be used for, right? Feeding the poor, housing the homeless, building up communities. If we would just stop and think about the conditions of our own heart, of our own health, and say, no more. I don't want to live like this anymore. I want to walk in divine health. I want to be healed. I want to be whole, and really want it and really believe it. And then say, I'm going to leverage the power of my faith, and I'm going to believe that I can be healed from this. And I'm going to leverage the power of plants and do what I need to do to develop self-care practices using plant-based options that restores health, revitalizes the body, revives the body, okay? So we can live free from sickness and disease, particularly cardiovascular disease, okay? So in the next few weeks to come, so throughout the month of February, we're going to talk more in detail on how to revive our cardiovascular system and to feel better the right way, okay? So stay tuned for next week. I'm going to give you 7 ways to improve and revive your cardiovascular health, okay? Thanks for listening.